Unlock the door to mystery with one very short story. The micro-podcast filled with morally complex characters, twists you won't predict, and endings you won't forget. Every episode is a brief, intense journey, perfect for listeners who crave mystery, intrigue, and stories that leave you thinking long after the tale ends. Today's episode begins now. The support group. The coffee was terrible. Again. Janet Morrison wrapped her fingers around the styrofoam cup, letting the weak warmth seep through her palms. The church basement smelled like industrial cleaner and decades of grief, a combination that had become as familiar as her own reflection. 2 months of Thursday nights in this circle of mismatched folding chairs, and she still couldn't get used to the fluorescent lights that buzzed overhead like dying insects. Anniversary reactions are normal, Doctor, Elena Martinez was saying, her voice carrying that professional warmth that somehow managed to feel genuine. The body remembers trauma, even when the mind tries to forget. Janet's mind wandered to Amy, always to Amy. Her daughter would have hated this place. The religious imagery watching from every wall, the smell of old carpet, the way grief hung in the air like humidity. Amy had been planning to move to Portland after graduation. She'd saved up $3,000 working at the campus bookstore, had her whole life mapped out in color-coded spreadsheets. The spreadsheets were still on her laptop. Janet couldn't bring herself to delete them. This is a safe space for all families affected by violent crime, Dr. Martinez continued, her practiced words flowing over the group. Whether your loss was from gang violence, domestic abuse, random attacks, or hate crimes, we're here to support each other through the healing process. Janet? Dr. Martinez's voice pulled her back. Would you like to share what you're thinking about? The circle of faces turned toward her. David Kim sat with his arms crossed, still raw after 3 months of sessions. Maria Santos stared at her lap, picking at her cuticles until they bled, and Alex Wu leaned forward slightly, those dark eyes focused with an intensity that should have been comforting but somehow wasn't. I was thinking about Amy's plans, Janet said, her voice barely above a whisper. She had everything figured out, her whole future. Tell us about those plans, Alex said softly. He always asked the right questions, always seemed to know exactly what to say. He'd started coming just a week after Janet, claiming he needed to understand how others coped with sudden loss. What did she want to do in Portland? Janet felt the familiar tightness in her chest. She wanted to work for a nonprofit, something with environmental justice. She'd researched everything, which neighborhoods were safe, which coffee shops had the best Wi-Fi for working. She laughed, but it came out broken. She even knew which grocery store had the best organic produce. She sounds incredibly organized, Alex said, and Janet noticed how he leaned forward when she spoke about Amy's habits. Did she keep lists? Routines? Oh God, yes. Amy lived by her routines. Every morning at 6:30, she'd go for a run through Riverside Park. Same route every day. She said consistency was the key to discipline. Janet's voice cracked. If she'd just changed her route that one day. The silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of what-ifs and if-onlys. David shifted in his chair, the metal legs scraping against the linoleum. Maria looked up from her cuticles, her dark eyes reflecting something Janet couldn't quite name. Routine can be both a blessing and a curse, Dr. Martinez said gently. It gives us structure, but it can also make us vulnerable. Vulnerable. Alex repeated the word like he was tasting it. That's an interesting way to put it. Something in his tone made Janet look at him more closely. Alex had been coming to group for just over a month now, ever since his girlfriend Lily had been killed in what the police called a random attack. He was always perfectly dressed, always perfectly composed. Even now, talking about vulnerability and routine, his expression remained neutral, analytical. Dr. Martinez had noticed it too, the way Alex never quite seemed to break down like the others, never showed the raw edges of fresh grief. She'd seen enough trauma responses to recognize when someone was performing rather than processing. But she'd also learned that some people intellectualized their pain as a coping mechanism, and pushing too hard too fast could cause them to flee treatment entirely. She'd been waiting for the right moment to address it privately. "What do you mean?" David asked. His voice edged with the suspicion that had been building over the past month. David didn't trust easily, and something about Alex had been setting him on edge since the newcomer arrived. Alex straightened his silver watch, a gesture Janet had noticed he made whenever he was thinking. "I just mean that when we're grieving, we look for patterns, reasons. We want to believe there was some logic to what happened, even when there wasn't." "There was logic to what happened to Robert," David said, his voice rising. "3 men followed him out of a bar because they didn't like seeing 2 guys hold hands. That's not random. That's hate." "I didn't mean to minimize your loss," Alex said quickly. "I'm sorry. I just meant that sometimes we torture ourselves looking for explanations that don't exist." Dr. Martinez intervened before David could respond, her training kicking in as she sensed the rising tension. "Let's take a step back. Marcus, can you tell us what you've been struggling with this week?" Alex was quiet for a long moment, his fingers still adjusting that watch. "I keep thinking about Lily's last day, what she was thinking, what she was feeling. The police said she fought back, that there was evidence of a struggle. I can't stop imagining what that must have been like for her." Janet felt her heart clench. She'd had the same thoughts about Amy, the same terrible imaginings that played on repeat in the dark hours before dawn. "The not knowing is the worst part," she said. "Amy's phone was found 50 feet from her body, but the screen was cracked. I keep wondering if she tried to call for help, if she tried to call me." "Did the police tell you anything about her final moments?" Alex asked, and Janet noticed how his questions always seemed to probe for specific details. "Sometimes they have information that can bring closure." "They said she was strangled," Janet whispered, "that it would have been quick. But they also said she had defensive wounds on her hands, so she must have known what was happening. She must have been so scared." Maria made a small sound, somewhere between a gasp and a sob. "Carlos didn't even see it coming," she said. "The bullet hit him while he was texting his girlfriend. The police showed me his phone. His last message was just the letter H. He was probably trying to type hey or hi or something normal, something alive." The weight of their collective grief settled over the circle like a blanket. This was why they came here, Janet realized. Not for the terrible coffee or the uncomfortable chairs or Dr. Martinez's well-meaning guidance. They came because they were the only ones who understood the specific texture of this kind of loss. Sudden, violent, senseless. "I think about Lily's phone too," Alex said quietly. "She was always texting someone, always connected. The silence after must have been deafening." Where did it happen? David asked suddenly. Lily's attack. Alex hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. Downtown, she was walking to her car after work. Janet felt a chill run down her spine. Something about the way Alex answered, the slight delay, the vague location. She found herself studying his face more carefully. What did Lily look like? She asked suddenly. Alex blinked. What do you mean? Physical description. Age, height, hair color. You've never really described her. She was... Alex paused, his hand moving to his watch again. She was 21, blonde hair, about 5 feet 6 inches. She was beautiful. Dr. Martinez leaned forward, her professional instincts sensing something shifting in the group dynamic. Marcus, I think it might help if you shared more about Lily. Sometimes talking about the person we lost, not just the loss itself, can be healing. There's not much to say, Alex said, but his composure was starting to show cracks. We hadn't been together very long. Bullshit. David's voice cut through the air like a blade. I've been watching you for weeks, man. You never cry. You never break down. You ask all these questions about our cases, but you never share real details about yours. Dr. Martinez immediately shifted into crisis management mode, her voice calm but authoritative. David, I need you to take a breath. Marcus, I can see you're feeling defensive. Let's all... There's no Lily, Maria interrupted, her voice barely audible. I work for the city clerk's office. I have access to death certificates and police reports. I looked up every Lily killed in this city in the past 3 months. There's no one matching your description. The silence that followed was deafening. Janet felt like she was falling, like the ground had opened up beneath her chair. Alex sat perfectly still, his hands folded in his lap, that silver watch catching the harsh fluorescent light. Why would you check? Dr. Martinez asked Maria, her voice carefully controlled as she assessed the situation. Because something felt wrong, Maria said. The way he asks questions, the way he never seems to actually grieve. I have access to records through my job, so I checked. There's no Lily who died the way he described. Marcus's smile started slowly, spreading across his face like spilled ink. It was the most terrible thing Janet had ever seen. Not because it was cruel or mocking, but because it was genuine. For the first time since she'd known him, Alex Wu looked truly, authentically satisfied. You're very observant, Maria, he said. I always appreciated that about you. You notice things the others miss. Dr. Martinez was already reaching for her phone, her training telling her to de-escalate while ensuring everyone's safety. Marcus, I think we need to pause here. Everyone, please stay calm. Who are you? Janet whispered. I'm exactly who I said I was, Alex replied. I'm someone who lost someone important to me, someone who understands grief intimately. I just needed to understand it better. But Lily was real, Alex said. She just wasn't my girlfriend. She was my first subject, my introduction to the fascinating world of human grief. The truth hit Janet like a physical blow. She thought about Amy's routines, about the questions Alex had asked, about how he'd probed for details while revealing nothing real about himself. You killed them, she whispered. Alex tilted his head, considering. I completed a comprehensive study. You see, I'd been watching this support group for months before I acted. I knew who attended, what kinds of losses brought people here. I selected my subjects carefully. Lily first, then Amy, then Robert, then Carlos. each one chosen to create a specific type of grief, a specific type of survivor. David started to stand, but Dr. Martinez held up a hand, her voice firm and professional. Everyone needs to stay seated. Marcus, I need you to explain what you mean. I study people, Alex said simply. But not just the dying, that's the easy part. The real fascination is in what happens after. How grief manifests differently in mothers versus siblings versus romantic partners. I needed to understand the full spectrum, so I created it. That's why you joined our group, Janet said, the pieces falling into place. To study us. To study grief in its purest form, Alex corrected. I killed them all first, then waited to see which families would seek support. When you all ended up in the same group, it was perfect. A controlled environment where I could observe and interact with my subjects' survivors. Janet couldn't breathe. The room was spinning, the fluorescent lights too bright, too loud. Amy was particularly interesting, Alex continued, his voice conversational. So organized, so planned, so full of hope for the future. I wanted to see how that kind of systematic loss would manifest in a mother's grief. And you didn't disappoint, Janet. The way you cling to her routines, her plans, her digital footprints. It's been fascinating to observe. You're insane, David whispered. I'm thorough, Alex corrected. Robert was about understanding different types of love. Carlos was the control, sibling grief versus parental versus romantic. I needed to understand the full spectrum. Dr. Martinez was speaking quietly into her phone, giving their location and requesting immediate assistance. But she kept her voice calm and professional. Marcus, I need you to stay exactly where you are. Can you do that for me? Of course, Alex said pleasantly. I'm not going anywhere. My research is complete now. I've learned everything I needed to know about grief, about how people break and how they try to heal, about the exquisite vulnerability of the human heart when it's been shattered. Maria was sobbing now, great heaving sobs that shook her entire body. Carlos was just walking home from work. He wasn't even supposed to be on that street. I know, Alex said gently. I had to make it look random. The police are actually starting to notice patterns now. 4 violent deaths in 6 months, all with family members in the same support group. They'll figure it out eventually, but by then my research will be complete. The beautiful thing about grief, Alex continued, is how it reveals truth. Strip away everything else. Hope, denial, social niceties, and you're left with the raw core of human experience. Pain, loss, the desperate need to make meaning from meaninglessness. The sound of footsteps was growing louder in the hallway outside. You've all taught me so much, Alex said, straightening his watch one final time. About the different flavors of grief, about how people break and how they heal. Janet, your maternal grief was particularly instructive. David, your anger was expected but still valuable data. And Maria, your investigative instincts made you the perfect catalyst for this moment. Dr. Martinez positioned herself between Alex and the door, her training guiding her to protect her group members while maintaining a calm presence. Marcus, the police are going to want to talk to you. I need you to remain calm and cooperative. I've been nothing but cooperative, Alex said. I came here every week, participated in your exercises, shared my insights. I've been the perfect group member. But Maria's little investigation forced my hand. I'd planned to continue observing for several more months. But now, he shrugged. Sometimes research timelines have to be adjusted. The basement door opened, and police officers entered, moving cautiously. Dr. Martinez had clearly communicated that this was a mental health situation requiring careful handling. "Sir, we need you to stand up slowly and keep your hands visible," one officer said calmly. Alex complied with fluid grace, that terrible smile still playing at the corners of his mouth. "I want you all to know that your grief has been beautiful to witness, educational. You've helped me understand something fundamental about human nature." As they cuffed him, he looked back at the circle of broken people he was leaving behind. "Thank you for sharing your pain with me," he said. "It's been invaluable." And then he was gone, leaving behind only the echo of his voice and the knowledge that their safe space had never been safe at all. That the person they'd trusted with their deepest pain had been the architect of that pain all along. Janet sat in her folding chair, staring at the spot where Alex had stood, and realized that some kinds of grief never end. They just change shape, becoming something darker and more complex than simple loss. Dr. Martinez was already moving into crisis mode, her professional training taking over as she began the process of helping her group members process this new trauma layered on top of their existing grief. The coffee was still terrible, but now it tasted like betrayal too. Thanks for listening to one very short story. If today's story hooked you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us grow and keeps the suspense coming your way. Want to dive deeper? Check out the podcast description to learn more about the show and explore special offers from our sponsor. Until next time, keep dodging bullets and stay safe in the shadows.